Good morning, everybody. It's Cowboy here. We have EM Burlingame. I know everybody is thirsty for some EM Burlingame content here because you were out last week. I get the feeling that you were being let's just say another version of rate limited.
Yeah.
Your fiber got cut. You had no internet last week. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I want we just got him yesterday. Just showed up yesterday, the repairman. And I got a Starlink. I should have had one backup anyways. But turns out our neighbors, for whatever reason, the way they wired this place, the power for the fiber drop is at the neighbor's house. And for whatever reason, my Colombian neighbors unplugged the power.
Okay.
So I got rate limited by the Colombians. I wasn't saying nothing about the cartels, so I don't know what any of that's about.
There's interesting stuff going on, actually, regarding that. Maybe as a former Green Beret, you might have a little bit of information on what's happening down there. But just to remind people who might be new to our channel and everything else, first of all, look in the description. You're going to get a link to EM's Twitter. You can also, through the Twitter, get to his Substack. Now, EM Burlingame is a former Green Beret investment banker, tech founder, medical researcher, and like I just said, an author. He has excellent work out there, so do check his stuff out. Also, in that same description of YouTube, Rumble, etc., you will find an algorithm that I have personally written. You get to watch me put it together. You get to see how the sausage is made. So click on that to get your free algo. And we got V the Gorilla with us too. How you doing, V?
Hey, gentlemen. Good morning, guys. How are you guys doing?
We're good. We're getting ready for a double header. And as a matter of fact, EM, you introduced us to Tommy Kerrigan, and you had a hell of a show with him just, I think, like 2-3 days ago. So he's on right after you.
Awesome.
So we're doing a little double header on that. So in fact, I'm going to go ahead and you and I in the background were talking about the white feather. And that's a very interesting concept. I had no idea what that was. So I think that the white feather might be kind of a good entry into some of the things you and I have been talking about and what's going on out there. So can you tell us what that is historically and how it's significant?
Yeah, so there's a great, I want to say 1930s movie with some of the great actors, of that era, late 30s, I think. I think it's called Gunga Din.
Oh, I heard of Gunga Din.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But it's got, I think, Gary Cooper and some of these others, and it's about the white feather. It might actually be called White Feather. I don't remember, but it's one of those movies about the French Foreign or the legionnaires and the English and et cetera in the late 1800s, and it's about white feathers and aristocratic friends and combat and all this other kind of stuff, or desert warfare and prisoner of war. And it's a great story. It's a great, fun story, but it's really centered around how far this young aristocratic man went to overcome the fact that he received 3 feathers from the 3 women in his life. Right?
Yeah.
Somebody, because the white feathers came up here recently, that's what got us talking about it. Somebody had articulated that it was the white feathers, the use of white feathers surreptitiously by the Germans, and somebody else, somebody said the Russians or whatever, but I don't believe that's the case, but that it was the use of white feathers that got so many young British men and nobles specifically killed in World War I.
White feathers.
The white feathers. That if you wanted, and I think this has something relevant to today, if you wanted to kill off the young men, because the young men are what are necessary to defend the lands and rights and privileges of a people, you would use young women to shame them.
Yeah.
Right? What's happening now? How are our young men demoralized? Well, we've trained our women toxic masculinity and rape culture and all this other stuff. So what do? They shame young men for being young men. And while they're not sending them to the battlefields yet, the equivalence is that the young men are not there to fight or defend for the land. They're pretty much taken off the battlefield so far. Right?
Right.
People like to think that it's males who set the status structures and hierarchies of society. It's not. It's always women. it's access to breeding rights, and the indelicate way of saying it, but only, they say statistically, I think it's probably lower, but only 40% of males that have ever lived have ever been able to have, earned the right with a woman to have a child. So
No, that's absolutely true. It's like less than 40% of men have reproduced.
that's
That's
right.
it.
And
All
I think
of
it's
us here
probably
are
lower,
Yeah.
right? I think statistically it's probably
It's like-
closer to 20,
Yeah.
right? Historically. And so what does that mean? It means
That's an interesting concept when you think about it, right?
Mhm.
It's like it's the numbers are anywhere between, I've read anything from like 23% to like 36%, something around those ranges.
Yeah.
And the other side of it is like 80% of all women that have ever lived have reproduced.
Correct.
Right, so it's a tremendous amount of difference.
Yes. And what it means,
Mhm.
it
Go
means
ahead,
that
man.
women set status hierarchies, not men.
Correct.
And it's unreal hard for a man to earn enough status. Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. I think you have a great point right there. The status hierarchies, and it just shows you at the end of the day, it's just like you have this massive amount of women that are breeding within a smaller gene pool.
Yes.
And we're all here because of it.
Yes.
And it kind of throws it brings about a lot of questions, like traditional marriage, monogamy, this, that, and the other, all this other stuff of what works, what doesn't. It's interesting, man. It really is interesting, and I think even though we're civilized and all this other stuff, there are genetic drivers at play that you cannot just simply deny.
Well, here's the honest truth. Estrogen and testosterone regulate absolutely everything every human does every minute of the day.
Right.
And it's the complex interplay between those two that is what drives absolutely everything. Every thought, every emotion, every feeling, every action at every level, every scale, everywhere, always.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you want to, Nick, to your comment, right? What are the white feathers of today? Right?
Mm-hmm.
What are the white feathers? What is the battle that the young men need to go into? And how do the young women who are stuck in the, so where we are right now is the estrogenic have almost won the war on testosterone completely.
Yeah.
The problem they have is that they have done so in completely artificial status hierarchies, which actually down underneath require male violence to sustain.
Right.
And so what are they doing? They're importing young men and bribing them with rape and violence and theft and free housing and everything else.
Sure.
As a way to try and replace their own young men so that they can have that lower level violence that's necessary to defend their artificial status hierarchies. The problem is that young men who are important, this is historically true across every time this has ever been used in every society, imported young men have absolutely no loyalties to the matriarchs of that land and no loyalty to the land or the society and civilization at all. And they just as soon rape you as they would the young girl that you brought, the lower class girl that you bribed them with.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so, I don't know what the white feathers are now that get the young men, to stand and fight. And, it's not men that give the feathers. It is women. Right.
Yeah.
But women are locked in this, there has been a war on healthy women for hundreds of years. We were burning witches at the stake, which were predominantly independent. I watched it in Afghanistan. I go to Afghanistan and the Islamic world in Southeast Asia as well. I was told my whole life that these are patriarchal, testosterone dominated societies. No, they're not. They're dominated by women. Every time a bright young girl, attractive bright young girl would start to show independence and some wherewithal and some cognitive and emotional regulation capabilities, the women would attack her, diminish her, tear her down. And if that didn't work, then they would sick the man on her. It was the same with young boys, by the way, too. And that was even uglier, right?
Yeah.
So women set the status hierarchies always by access to breeding rights.
So in a place like Afghanistan, right, where it just seems like overtly on the surface in front of everybody seems an absolutely male-driven type or patriarchal system, what do you? So you're actually seeing is female controls what you're saying?
Yes. Cross time. Look at a society culturally. It's not a masculine culture. Most of the Islamic world isn't masculine at all. Look at them.
You should
ask any of us that fought them, stood and fought with them. Now, that's not to say there isn't masculine men in there, that there aren't good men. I've stood next to Muslims that were dumb, solid people, right? But they weren't like that. They protected their daughters, and sometimes at great expense. Right? Great personal expense in their own household.
So how would you
other
explain
households in the community? Yeah, go ahead.
How would you explain somebody saying, well, you know, if you go to Afghanistan, women are not in government, they're have no power, they're not allowed to.
That's not true. They don't have power. What men get into positions of power, what men have assets and resources, that all comes from women, controlled by women behind the scenes. This is unhealthy matriarchy. I've written about it several times.
Interesting.
In Europe, I'll give you an example. This isn't just the same there. This is in Europe. The oldest families, the oldest contiguous families, unbroken for centuries, some of them going back 900 years, probably earlier. We just don't have records before that. These old houses are all matrilineal, mother to daughter to daughter to daughter, unbroken. And some of them go back 900 years. That's called the House of Garcenda. People can go look this up. It's on YouTube. There's some great videos on the matrilineal houses of Europe. Okay. This is true across time. Only 20 to 30%, 20 to 40%, whatever they want to say, of males have ever had children. 80% of women. Okay, well, right there, you're going to have over several generations, over 3 generations, you're going to actually have women that are the unbroken line versus the males. Men tend to die younger. Men tend to do, younger, at a younger age.
Yeah.
Men tend to die in greater numbers before they're even at the age where they can earn the status to have children. Men are the ones who die in wars. Men are the ones who die in heavy labor. So statistically across time, this is all cultures, by the way, it's just biology, right? It's biology, hormones, and evolution. Statistically across 5 generations, and that's being very, very generous, across 5 generations, a family that is continued is going to be predominantly controlled, generally from behind the scenes, by women. And a family that goes beyond that, 6, 7 generations, is pure the assets, the ownership, the influence, the relationships, the longevity, all of that will be down the matrilineal line.
Gotcha.
And and again, this has nothing to do with culture or society. No. This is biology. This is hormones. This is evolution.
Is it like when you look at the Afghan culture, when you look at a lot of the Eastern cultures, right? It's men that are in the positions of power, office, village leaders, chieftains, this, that, and the other. The women are often, especially in those extreme cultures, not allowed to go to school. They're covered head to toe, and I'm just having.
But it's the women that do that. It's the women that decide that and set the society because they don't want competition from other women.
Yeah.
Right? They don't want to disrupt the matrilineal line structures and power structures and status hierarchies they have.
I get it. So they are basically like the men are the head of the house, but the women are the neck,
the owner. Yeah, the neck. Yeah. But more precisely, exactly what I said. The men are and this, by the way, this goes back to Europe as well. Let's look at our own ancestries and our own cultures in the European world. Generally, it was the woman's family that owned the wealth and the assets and the relationships. The man might have a title, generally didn't have a whole lot of wealth because he was busy doing war, and war is kind of expensive. right? But a man would be found who had the wherewithal to protect the family and its assets, and had the managerial skills to properly manage the assets of the family that would come with the daughter. And for that, he would be given children and the wealth and access to the wealth and assets necessary to do the work that he needed to do.
Right.
That's true in our cultures and societies today, even, right? This hasn't really changed a lot amongst the upper class families. Now, what do? You put the men out there because, Jesus Christ, if you look at women managing much of anything beyond a certain complexity, it's just chaos.
Interesting. So, okay, I get it. So it's still the hive mentality.
It's still the hive mentality, and it's the queen bee mentality.
Yeah.
We are just, again, now, even in social pack animals, I mean, I watched it with horses, I watched it with all kinds of things. Now, you will sometimes with lions and wolves and other, when a new alpha male is elevated, through combat, etc., he'll kill the young of the previous male, but he won't kill the females.
No, he wouldn't. That is absolutely correct.
So what winds up happening? It's still a matrilineal system.
Yeah.
Right. So in that case, who owns the genes and the territory, the physical territory that the alpha now, right? It's the females.
I'd say it's even biological, because women can only have one child, 2 if they're lucky at a time. Any man can replace other men very easily in the breeding structure.
That's
but
exactly
women cannot
right.
replace each other.
That's exactly right. Which brings up another point. It's somewhat of a tangent, but something very important for right now. Okay, historically, and not so very long ago, single mothers were the norm, and men were, father-in-laws, or not father-in-laws, but stepfathers.
Yeah.
And adopted those children. That's actually the historic norm, because the fathers died young, disease, worked themselves to death. There was a fight, or they went away to war, or they fought the other tribe, or another town, or the other principality. This is the norm. Single mother. So this is the thing that really not upsets me, but it really disappoints me about the matriarchy right now, is that matriarchy has turned us all against single mothers.
Mm-hmm.
Did it on purpose, because these younger women, these women, right, the lower status women, are competition. And if that woman was able to find a good man that could manage and be a good father to those children might grow up to be a competition for that matriarch's family.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. And we turn young men against single mothers. I watch it. I see, the little marketing, all this subtle,
the whole red pill movement and MGTOW and all that. It's pretty interesting, because when you look at it from the biblical standpoint I'm often reminded of the story of Ruth, where that's a story of where, and oftentimes you see it all throughout biblical history, where you've had like a quote unquote single mom, and then all of a sudden she's brought into a marriage, or with a man of resources, and so to speak. So this was a common thing.
Yes.
And Ruth was removed from a lot of Bibles, wasn't it?
No. The Book of Ruth is there. It's still there.
I thought Ruth was actually taken out of a fair amount of Bibles, if I'm not mistaken.
No.
But one thing about what makes it difficult is that the laws have made it such that, like marrying a single mom, having to raise those kids, it's made it difficult because men, and this is said by somebody else, I'm just repeating something that makes a lot of sense. The men are given all the responsibility of the fatherhood, but none of the authority.
Correct.
So you end up where we're disincentivized.
Yeah. So the state becomes the father, right?
Yeah.
And again, why? The state is created by matriarchs. They're the ones with the assets. They're the ones who control the politicians and the judges and everybody else from behind the scenes, because they have the wealth and the assets in the local communities. So they set up a system where lower class women, middle class and lower class women, single mothers in particular, can never go on to be a threat to them in their matriarchal status hierarchy. And one of the ways, back to the white feathers, you promulgate that is sending the young, to get the women who might be mothers, for the young men or for the men, to go to shame the men to go into some war to go kill themselves in great numbers. It's all control. It's matriarchs controlling the system from behind the scenes. I call it the unhealthy matriarchy that wears the mask, the evil mask, predatory and weak estrogenic mask
The
of
devouring
patriarchy.
mother.
It's the devouring mother who wears the mask of patriarchy.
Fuck. Oh man, it makes so much fucking sense.
Right? And women, there are so many amazing women out there. A lot of them are mothers, single mothers. Amazing women, but they're in an impossible situation.
Yeah, they're fighting poverty, man.
Well, they're fighting poverty, but they're not just fighting poverty. What they're fighting is for status in matriarch system, matriarchal status hierarchies. And they have no ability, virtually no ability unless they go whore themselves out, which is another form of artificial status, right?
Yes, correct.
So women are, and you can go back to the 1600s and see, when I was writing The Eternal War several years ago, 5 years or so ago, I went and studied for a little bit. I studied psychopaths and sociopaths and all of that for a while. And then I went back and I started looking at the old records for the witch trials and who were the witnesses and what were the things they were saying. And yeah, pretty much these were the strong, independent women in the community, and the other women in the community and their weak men that they controlled would turn on that woman and literally get her burned at the stake. Well, the same thing's happening now. We don't burn them at the stake. We keep them in poverty or near in poverty. We keep them in a position, where they're basically borderline canceled from society. And we deny them the access to the men necessary to help them build something, stable and firm, and for them to feel secure. Why? Because the unhealthy matriarchs and their estrogenic males and predatory males that they put in power as this patriarchy thing are constantly preying on and diminishing these women, and then making sure that the men in society don't have the wherewithal and the assets to come together with these single women and their children. But that's the norm throughout history, is single moms and fathers who come in. And some of the greatest figures in history, the greatest things that have ever happened in history were these pairings.
Yes, this is absolutely correct.
Right?
Yeah, you're bringing up so many things that it's things that I haven't even considered or even thought about, and I think many people shame women that are in this position. It's terrible that this occurs.
But this is the norm where these women are. This isn't an abnormality, historic. Now there is an historic abnormality, Nick, going back to what you said about the welfare state. The welfare state was specifically designed to remove women and men coming together as couples. It was to remove the father from the house.
Correct.
It was to remove the need for lower status women or even middle status women who get into a bit of a bind from coming together with a man and actually building something. Why? Because those women and their children, and the man, but really the women and their children across time, across 3 to 5 generations, could become competition.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct. Yep.
We're shaming women now for things that, and even the upper class women get shamed for it too, right? It's just total estrogenic bullshit. But we're shaming them for something that is historically, and in much of the world even today, the norm.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, especially when you consider the entire red pill movement with these young dating,
intentionally done
relationship experts who are just a bunch of 20-year-old and 30-year-old guys who've never been married, don't have families, don't have shit. People are looking at single mothers are for recreational use only, and all this other disgusting
old men, no, it's bullshit. It's historically accurate, and
it's incredible. Like these guys, like the Andrew Tates of the world, and the red pill movements. They are brought in to never to be the solution.
Yeah,
they never offer a solution. Solutions build civilization.
Tate Brothers and MI6 operation.
I'm starting to think that. Like I'm like, where are these guys getting their money from?
They're trafficking women.
Yeah,
all of it. Yeah. Right. You want to? Yeah.
they're dual
Yeah, but by the same
citizenships,
token, I
right?
got to push back a little bit because a lot of what's been talked about, a lot of what has been taught, hyperfeminism, we don't really have a very even distribution of power. The risks that men take and do are not appreciated in society. And
No, that's
so,
all true.
and on top of that, so we want to talk about building civilization. And
Right.
if we're going to claim that, getting married, having a monogamous relationship, having children with that person, if that's going to build society, the laws that we have are not conducive to doing such a thing right now. And I
No, well,
think
that
we
gets
we
back.
we had a feminism that was put in place. At least some of the laws were there to even things out a little bit back when men were making all of the money, 50, 100 years ago. And then if a woman was divorced, then she had like nothing. And I get it. I get why some of these laws were put in place to protect women. But what's happened now because of that is, as you said earlier, the state is now the dad. And people are not having a long-term commitment to their children because they think the state is going to take care of them. But what happens instead of that is men are going to rebel against such things when we are no longer encouraged to get married because half of our shit gets taken away the minute that you lose an argument with your wife.
Yeah.
So, we're in a
that's the whole thing.
situation.
They work on both sides. They're working on the women's
Yeah.
angle as well. You got these women that are so self-absorbed. They're out there, completely influenced by social media. But at the same time, on the men's side with this whole red pill stuff is for us to not give a shit about women or future or progeny or anything, but and the end draw. And here's the thing: when you look at the red pill movement and you look at these the social media girls, right, and all this other stuff, the end result is what the estrogenic elites want, which is just baseless consumption. It's just consumption. At the end of the day, the red pill movement is like, just focus on yourself, bang like 1,000 women, don't get married, this, that, the other. And then the social media whores, the Insta hoes are doing the same thing. So at the end of the day, nobody's having any sort of responsibilities, any sort of kids. Nobody's pushing society forward, and we're all just consuming. Like, look! I think it was PJW, Paul Joseph Watson, did a video on these young impressionable women that are going to the workforce, and they're just simply going to the workforce and this is my day in the office. I'm just having a cup of coffee. I'm gonna have a meeting.
Artificial status hierarchies.
Yes, exactly.
Well, it's not just consumption. Totally agree with that.
Yeah.
But it's artificial status hierarchies. These are made up
that's
jobs.
the other.
These are made up systems. The problem is that down underneath these artificial status hierarchies, artificial realities, is actual male violence. Because these artificial status hierarchies can't survive if they're not in a fully protected environment.
Yeah. That's where I was going with this. It isn't just consumption. What it's going to end up being is, what do you call it? Polygamy. You're going to have the strongest man taking all the women. And then what you're going to end up with is a bunch of young men who are not very happy about it. And that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. So I don't know that that's a recipe for disaster. This has been the norm throughout most of human history. The issue is, again, back to status hierarchies. Status hierarchies drive everything. Status hierarchies, there's two separate structures for status hierarchies. There's the matriarchal, and then the world of women is what we should call it, right? And then there's the world of man. These are two separate worlds. One's testosterone, one's estrogen. It's not quite that simple a delineation, but for all intents and purposes. There are status hierarchies within the world of man. That's male shit, right?
Right.
And those status hierarchies, every one of them is real. You have to earn your place in there. And they're not pleasant, and they're not easy. It's hard shit, right? And that's not what the Tates and anybody else. All that shit they teach, status hierarchy, is all artificial status hierarchies.
Mm-hmm.
All of it. That's estrogenic fucking status hierarchies. Preying upon, using, all of it. In the world of women, though, the issue, again, getting back to estrogen, getting back to breeding, getting back to all of that, matrilineal lines going unbroken, assets, all of that. In the world of man, men set status. Yeah. And you can recognize it like that. And we need to do a better job of that. Of, bringing young men in. That's a lot of the focus. That's
describe that for the listening audience. EM,
in the world of man.
Yeah,
the world of man has one currency, one status: violence.
Okay.
What does that look precise, like? Highly capable violence.
What does that look like in a functioning society or world? Like, what does that give us? Some examples, so we have some sort of composite to work with.
The best way to think of it, this is why the book is coming out next week, is a Modern Knights guidebook, is knighthood.
Okay.
It's martial capacities. Now, how that martial capacity, we got to remember the knights were the land, they were responsible for the land and the governance and everything else in their small local, in their local areas, sometimes large. Some of them were dukes and princes, etc. But knights were, somewhat like the samurai in Japan, right? They were responsible administration-wise. They were responsible legally, judicially. They were the arbiters for, the conflicts in their communities. They were also the ones that had to be prepared constantly for physical violence. And, have the willingness and the ability to use violence to administer, right, as part of administration. And part of that was responsibility for bringing up the next generations of, young men who were capable of controlled but unmitigated, ruthless violence if necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there was a pipeline, and depending on what, level of status you were, what level of knighthood, what level of, low level aristocratic or high level aristocrat, noble, you had responsibilities to bring up the young men to go fight in a conflict, whether it's with a neighboring principality or it was, an invading army. You had to be prepared. You had to, from the time they were young. And I don't think we want to go the way of Sparta, because that was a very unhealthy system. And that, by the way, everybody needs to look at Sparta. It's not what people think. It was a very ugly matriarchal system where the female Spartans owned everything. And they created a horrible, horrible, ugly system.
Interesting.
Right.
All this time we're thinking it's the men.
Nope.
No. Molonabe, and all this other
stuff. Which, Molonabe was true, and that's right. And the men did, but Sparta was a ugly society owned and controlled by the matriarchs.
Kind of makes sense. You got the oracles of Delphi. You have the queens of Sparta, the noble wives.
They controlled and owned all the assets. The women owned Sparta. They owned it physically, and they set up a system that was absolutely atrocious. And it's a system we're rushing towards here, unfortunately, and we need to stop that. But back to what you were saying, the only currency, and I've got a video on YouTube, right, called The Currency, Lord Rothbury's thoughts at the New Nobility channel. It's called The Currency. The only real currency in the world of man is violence, but it's not unmitigated violence. It's controlled, and Jordan Peterson and others has said, man has to be a monster, but he has to have that monster under total and absolute control always. And that's that in the world of man, that's what we're doing. We are shaping men to do the violence necessary to protect our women, to protect the matriarchy, to protect, the assets and the civilization and everything through violence. And everybody looks, we got a legal system. Yes, but people carry guns to enforce it, and people kill people to enforce it in your own community. So don't tell me it's not about violence. We fight wars all over the world. And now we're importing these, anyways, bastards here, these fuckers here. But point being is this: in the world of man,
let us know how you truly feel, please.
Yeah, we're gonna have to hold back. Don't hold back.
We're only gonna be able to remigrate so many. We're gonna have to kill a lot. It's coming. It's being forced upon us. We don't want it, but it's being forced upon us. It was forced upon us on purpose.
How many of them would actually do something here? Like, what do you think? I think maybe 1% of the population.
It only takes 1 to 3%.
Yeah.
Right. The Hells Angels got the 1%ers. Right.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason for that. It takes 1 to 3% actively engaged or actively supporting physical violence.
Because I think I war game this from an economic standpoint so many times, and I've had so many conversations with Cowboy, with so many other guys. here, and it's I war game this out. There's no, and I'm gonna say this, and it could be unpopular, but I know you get it, EM. You've been on the mountaintop on this thing for quite some time.
I've fallen off it too a couple of times.
But nobody's electing themselves out of this. We're not voting ourselves out of this mess.
No.
And here's the thing. I had this conversation with Cowboy. It was in our Algo Factory class. I said, look, here's the thing. When you look at the European nobility, right? You had 7 members of the AfD German political party just drop dead in about a week.
You know about.
Exactly, that we know about. Now, if
it's total coincidence, by the way, total coincidence.
Yeah, exactly. If 7 proctologists in my neighborhood died, there'd be an investigation. Okay, why are these proctologists dying? But nothing's happening with these German politicians. Well, now it's to the point where the Euro elites are like, we're bringing in the savages. We're bringing the barbarians into the gates. We're going to go into a managed decline. We're going to go into a techno neo feudalism, and you're going to enjoy every single minute of it. And we're going to kill any oppositional populist party that you're going to rise up against us. We're going to nullify. And what are you going to do about it? The European elites have already casted their lots, and they don't care. The mask is off.
The matriarchs want their men to die.
Yes.
Because they are afraid of their men, because in history, there are times when men, the world of man, has to tell the world of woman, shut the fuck up, sit the fuck down, and get the fuck out of the way. Mm-hmm. So I want to go to one other thing before we go down this pathway, okay? So the world of man is about violence, period. Mm-hmm. And the status hierarchies in the world of man are related to that, okay? And that's like this thing with Clay Martin that's on where he calls out this other gentleman, Nate, around McPhee and some other things. I won't go into that, but what is that? That is violent, very capable, very experienced, very proven men resetting some public statements that were made about somebody, because in the world of man, motherfucker, you don't say that about that guy. I don't give a fuck what happened. Some administrator bullshit that, reduced him in rank, etc. You can't erase the history of what he's done. Yeah. And the world of men, a man stepped forward, Clay, and said, you don't fucking talk about that guy this way. You do not have the right. What is that doing? That's resetting status structures, right? And what it's saying is that in the world of man, it's not fucking paperwork that gives you status. It's other killers, right? It's other fucking killers. Now, that's not just always physical killing. Sometimes it's managing structures and systems in very, ruthless and brutal ways so that they work and they function for as many people as possible, right? Because that's also the world of man's place. Now I want to go to the world of women, okay? The world of women has historically, though this has mostly gone away, and this is where the big problem for the whole world until we figure this out, and it's not for us to do, it's for fucking status women to do, and for women to do, right? Because the world of man can protect the world of women, it can influence it, but we can't control it, we don't own it, it just doesn't work, right? The status structures in the world of women, not so long ago, and in most places outside of the West, even today, the status in the world of women was about relationship creating. It was about looking at a woman in the status hierarchy and going and finding a man to match her up with and binding that man to her and her assets and her children and her grandchildren, such that the assets and the wealth and the relationships that come with that woman are safe and secure and grow and aren't reduced. Right? And in the healthy matriarchs, that's their 99%. Well, I wouldn't say 99. 80% of what they're supposed to be doing is ensuring that those relationships happen. Right?
Right.
Other portion of what they're doing is raising their own children and being mothers and managing their own men that they were partnered with, right? And then looking in the way that the world of women look, which is across more generations historically. They look across more generations and they look at their assets and they're risk averse and all that kind of stuff, right? That's world of woman stuff. So, in the world of man, it's about violence and management. Right. Yeah. In the world of women, it's about maintenance of creation and maintenance of relationships and assets. It's that simple. And those two worlds come together in the, intersection of those things. But we don't have that now. Now it's about money and paper and contracts and artificial status hierarchies upon artificial status hierarchies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If high status women spent a fraction of the fucking time they do now on all this bullshit, on just figuring out how to get that woman and that man together, because that's a good couple, and we need to make that work. And we need to make sure that that sustains through the 5-year, 10-year, and 20-year windows, right? That's what women used to do. That's what give women, and most of the world outside the West, that's what they still do. And guess what? That's why women have so much power.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're bringing a man and his managerial and violence capabilities and his network and his world of man status hierarchy, bringing that into the world, over to the world of women and binding them there. And that man, I don't know there are some unhealthy men. I'm going to tell you something. I've never seen anything in my life more powerful than a father's love for his children. 100%. Not even a woman's love for his children.
Yeah, this is actually a studied thing, man. This is actually a studied thing. It's yeah.
Bro,
if hell opened up, we would jump right in to go get our kids.
Oh, we'd fight the devil barehanded.
Barehanded.
Right. And this isn't to take away from others, et cetera, but it's a fundamentally different thing. And also, they demonstrate, Dr. William Farrell and others, through studies that go back 40 years or so, two good parents, even two not so good parents, but two parents are always better for a child. But if the child's going to be with a single parent, it is always
better with the
father.
Yep.
No matter the age, no matter the gender, nothing. It's on every measure measured.
Right.
Right. My daughter was about 1.5 to 3 years old when I was in Special Forces selection and the Q course.
Yeah.
And then was 3 when I got to my team. These guys were all multiple combat rotations during the heart of the wars, right? Just ruthless, brutal, capable men, teaching men, right? Future Green Berets, selecting for first, and then teaching future Green Berets and weeding them out the whole time. My little girl walked into that room. They were the biggest, softest teddy bears you ever see in your life.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it was like just a switch. And these guys who were going through all this stuff and dealing with stuff and, rough and tumble, they might've been yelling and screaming at somebody and, dressing somebody down or just in but the moment that little girl walked in the room, oh my God, it was like it's like the sun had opened up in the room and all the clouds went away and, gods were shining down on. So
it's incredible. And that's why we righteously hate pedophiles.
Oh, they need to be eviscerated. Pedophiles need to be straight up eviscerated. No more prison. No more. No.
Instant death penalty.
Eviscerated.
Yep.
And when I mean that quite literally, eviscerated.
Mm-hmm.
Rip their fucking guts open, pull their guts out, cut the abdomen open, pull their guts out and let them die.
Yep.
And look them in the eyes as they're dying.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
But unhealthy women, the matriarchs, they like the pedophiles because it demoralizes our children. It demoralizes lower status men and women.
It's like the spirit of the devouring mother is in full effect in the West.
Going back to your Bible reference, right? It's we've allowed, and I'm not a Christian, but I did go to Christian schools and study quite, seriously when I was younger. But it's the story of Lilith, the sons and daughters of Lilith, right? These are fucking demons. These are demon humans. These are, Cain's is Cain, right? It's Cain's children.
Lineage. Yep.
Right. And Cain's wife was one of Lilith's daughters.
Correct.
So, in the old stories, right? The old Sumerian and become Jewish stories.
Yeah.
So, Hebrew stories. So, So back to the white feathers. There are white feathers within the world of women and the world of man.
What are the white feathers in the world of women?
That I don't know. That's, and I haven't really thought about it to this conversation. Yeah. Yeah. And then there's the white feathers within the world of woman or the world of man, and then there's the feathers that are shared between them.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I think we should, continue to explore that. We
Yeah, we
got,
have a hard stop. We got
we
Tim.
also have your most. Oh, go ahead, V.
No, go ahead, Cowboy.
Let's see. We also have your most recent workout, which I believe we used for the title of this show, Our English Civilization. And in the 2 minutes we have left, do you want to tell us about it? And by the way, everybody, you can look it up in the description on EM's Twitter. But tell us a little about that before we log off here. And we got Tommy Kerrigan coming up 15 minutes after we're done.
Awesome. Give him my regards. Yeah, so a collection of essays, This Our English Civilization. It'll be out today in paperback, Kindle probably later today. And it's just we're at a place, to this overall conversation, et cetera, that we have got to realize, all these other complex things aside, there's something fundamental down underneath both men and women have to do. And that is that we have to remember that we are a civilizational people and where that civilization comes from and the various steps that have gone on where we fought that out every 400 years to maintain our civilization and where we failed. Like the last 400 year, we retained the civilization, but we were infiltrated. And now they're trying to collapse us. And so, we have to go back. And there's a piece I wrote this morning. I'm going to probably do another book after the Knight's Guidebook, which comes out next week. But we have got to remember what our civilization is and what it's gone through, because that's who we are as men and women. That's who we really are down underneath. I don't care if you're American, Canadian, New Zealander, et cetera. We are all, or Irish or Scottish or Welsh or East Anglian or whatever. We're all members of the English civilization. And we need to remember that. That's the status hierarchy we all operate within.
Yeah.
Right? And anything, to your question, anybody who is doing something disloyal to our civilization, they need to get the white feathers.
Yeah.
Whether they're man or woman, right?
Very well said.
Yep. And ultimately, that's why they go after the women, because the women are, the women are essentially almost like a substrate for
the women are the higher structure. The women are the higher structure because they are the continuity through their wombs. I mean, it's quite literally, but also through the nurture, etc. The women are the continuity. So yes.
Man, it's great show as always. V, can you get us out of here? And you now go straight into to talk with Tommy, who EM, you introduced us to him, so we're appreciative of that.
Yep. EM, thank you so much for being on, folks. Again, join us our upcoming show. Keep it locked and loaded right here. Check out all of EM's works. It's all in the description box. And when's your book coming out, man?
So I've got 2 books came out in the last couple of weeks. I've got another one coming out today, another next week, and then I think I'm going to do another one after that, and then I'm going to shift gears a little bit.
Folks, get his books. Get his books. We need some clarity. We need some real solutions, especially in this coming age. There's no look. I've wargamed this so much, man. It's just you're not voting yourself out of this.
No,
there's no political savior here.
No.
It's we're heading towards a date with destiny, and all I'm trying to do is wake up the lions. That's all I'm trying to do. That's all, and that's what EM has been doing for quite some time.
Yep.
Just want to thank all you guys for being on, and we'll be back tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.
See ya.
Thanks, EM.
Yeah.
EM, thank you.